There was a time when you thought it would destroy you. The rejection, the betrayal, the failure, the heartbreak, the loss, the moment everything you believed in fell apart. You remember that night. You remember sitting alone, wondering how you were going to keep going. You remember pretending you were okay when you weren't. You remember smiling around people, then falling apart when you were alone. But look at you now. You're still here. You survived something you once believed you couldn't survive. And that changes everything. Because the thing that broke you once doesn't have the same power anymore. You know what pain feels like. You know what disappointment feels like. You know what losing feels like. And more importantly, you know how to get back up. The person who entered that painful chapter is not the person standing here today. You are stronger. You are wiser. You see people differently. You see life differently. And you understand yourself in ways you never could before. So don't look at your past and only see what it took from you. Look at it and see what it built. Because sometimes the chapter that nearly destroys you creates the strongest version of you. Pain has a strange way of teaching lessons comfort never could. When everything is easy, you don't discover your limits. You don't discover your strength. You don't discover how resilient you really are. But when life takes something away, you discover what remains. And what remained was you. You lost people and learned how to stand alone. You failed and learned how to try again. You were rejected and learned that rejection doesn't define your worth. You were underestimated and learned to stop needing approval. You were hurt and learned to protect your peace. Pain didn't give you everything you wanted, but it gave you something you didn't know you needed: strength. And now, the same situations that once terrified you don't look quite as powerful because you've already survived worse. One of the greatest mistakes you can make is believing that your past still defines you. It doesn't. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to become colder about what matters and softer about what doesn't. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to stop explaining yourself. You are allowed to stop returning to places that destroyed your peace. The old version of you may have tolerated things that the new version of you will never tolerate again. And that's growth. You don't owe your past a permanent version of yourself. You can evolve. You can rebuild. You can become someone your old self wouldn't even recognize. The person who broke you may have known your weaknesses, but they don't know who you're becoming. Healing means accepting that you cannot go back, not because you're bitter, not because you hate anyone, but because you've learned what it costs you. You know what happens when you return to the same environment, the same habits, the same people, the same patterns. You already know the ending. Don't confuse familiarity with safety. Something can feel familiar and still be destroying you. A relationship can feel familiar. A lifestyle can feel familiar. A habit can feel familiar. But familiarity doesn't make something healthy. If something repeatedly destroys your peace, you don't need another lesson. You've already learned it. Walk away, not with anger, with clarity. Sometimes the strongest goodbye is the one you never announce. You simply stop returning. One day, the people who once underestimated you may see you differently, but don't build yourself for their approval. Don't become successful just to prove them wrong. Become successful because you owe yourself a better life. That's different. Revenge keeps you connected to the people who hurt you. Growth sets you free. You don't need them to regret losing you. You need to stop regretting what happened to you. You don't need an apology to move forward. You don't need closure from someone who hurt you. Sometimes closure is realizing you deserve better and choosing better from that moment forward. Let your life become the answer, not your words, not your anger, not your revenge, your life. Healing doesn't always mean you forget. Sometimes you remember without hurting the same way. The memory stays, but the power disappears. You can remember the betrayal without becoming bitter. You can remember the failure without becoming afraid. You can remember the rejection without questioning your worth. You can remember the person without wanting them back. That's healing. Not forgetting what happened, but refusing to let what happened control what happens next. Your past can explain you, but it does not have permission to control you. You are allowed to move forward, and you don't have to carry every piece of your past into your future. Some things are meant to stay behind you. Now, build your mind, build your body, build your skills, build your discipline, build your finances, build your confidence, build your relationships, build your character, because the best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's making sure you never again become dependent on someone else's approval for your happiness. Create a life that you respect. Create habits that make you proud. Become someone you can trust, because when you trust yourself, you stop being terrified of losing people. You stop begging. You stop chasing. You stop accepting less. Just because you're afraid of being alone, you become comfortable standing on your own. And that's when everything changes. The thing that broke you once will not break you again. Not because life became easier, because you became stronger. The rejection that destroyed you once will teach you. The betrayal that crushed you will make you wiser. The failure that embarrassed you will make you resilient. The loneliness that terrified you will teach you how to stand alone. The pain that once controlled you will become proof that you can survive difficult things. So don't be ashamed of what you've been through. Look at what it created. You are not the person who walked into that storm. You are the person who walked out. And this time, you know your strength. You know your value. You know your boundaries. You know what you will never tolerate again. So when life tests you, don't panic. When someone leaves, don't chase. When someone rejects you, don't beg. When you fail, don't quit. When you are alone, don't collapse. Remember what you've already survived. You have been broken before, and you rebuilt yourself. You have been lost before, and you found your way. You have fallen before, and you stood again. So this time, you don't need to fear the fall, because you know you can get back up. What broke you once built the person who cannot be broken the same way again. Your past is not your prison. It's your proof. Proof that you survived. Proof that you grew. Proof that you're stronger. So walk forward. No bitterness. No revenge. No looking back. Just strength. Just discipline. Just purpose. And remember, they may have broken the old you, but they will never control the new you. Never again.